All right, so we really wanted this to feel like a fireside chat. That's why you're seeing us sitting inside a chat box. So the idea of this conversation is just literally that. It's a conversation to understand what is really required to get women to climb the corporate ladder, especially in finance. Which is why we have two stalwarts from the finance industry to really share their thoughts and opinions with us. While we start, Amit, if you can share a little bit about your own personal journey and why you feel so strongly about women rising to the top.
Okay, so personal journey is very simple. Come from a very humble background. Belong to a business family. So PNLs, being an entrepreneur, was in the blood. But obviously, I'm a black sheep. I ended up doing a job, and but thanks to my father, the ecosystem. I think one of our panelists earlier spoke about the village. We were blessed to have the support from the village and the entire ecosystem. They encouraged me to go pursue my dream. My dream was to, I didn't know back then I'll become a CEO or titles really don't matter for me, but I knew I wanted to create my own identity. That's exactly how I went and did my management program later on. Have gone back to college to upskill at least 3 times. Did my management program, then did my second round of management program, and then in 2012 went back to INSEAD to say I want to upskill again. And I think that would be my largest message here later today as well. It's extremely important to upskill, whether you want to come back in your career or whether you want to remain in top in your in your career journey. Blessed to be married to Deepika. I have two lovely girls back at home, 13 and 15 now, and very happy to be here. A little overwhelmed as well. Thank you all for coming on a Saturday. I am sure you've traveled from long distances. I see some of us here with young kids. Can you raise your hands, please? Yeah. Many of you are here with kids. I think it takes a lot of effort to be here, and I must acknowledge that.
Thank you. And you definitely do not look like you have daughters aged 13 and 15. So that was quite a surprising fact of it.
Well, I get that very often. I also heard some of the colleagues here ask this question earlier. I will end up working for somebody younger. I've always ended up hiring people who've been elder to me. Age is in your mind. What really matters is what value you add to the stakeholder. Whether it's your own business, you are an SME, or you are in the corporate career, if you are adding value to the stakeholders, you will grow. Nothing can stop you.
Great. Thank you, Amit. That was quite a start. Anuradha, would you like to share something?
Sure. Thank you, Neha, for having me. And just a quick introduction about myself. My name is Anuradha Ganpati, and I'm currently the country head of HR for Credit Suisse in India. Just a little higher. Higher? That's a little higher. Oh, is that better? Better? Yeah, okay. So, a little bit about my background. I've been in Mumbai all my life, actually. From the time I can remember, I was born and brought up here. Did my post graduation in human resources from Pune, and subsequently started my career in HR. I started with actually IT. I started with Putnam Computers and Tata Consultancy Services, but then moved to finance very quickly. And I think since 2001, I've been working in the financial services space across multinational, national as well as domestic firms, both on investment banking and on the retail side. So I've worked with Citi, spent some time with HDFC Life on doing retail, insurance, volume, then moved back, spent some time with Lehman Brothers, and now for the longest with Credit Suisse. I've done a variety of roles in HR before. In the last 3 years, though, I've been heading HR for Credit Suisse across our banking business as well as the offshoring business. So that's a little bit about my background. I think we've been associated with Neha on this topic for many years now, and it's been a topic we are heavily investing in Credit Suisse. One of the things I particularly feel proud about is which I also think is one of the ways I've probably tried to give back to the to this topic is I was instrumental in leading and designing a program around mentoring for my organization. Mentoring is done a lot these days, the only reason I'm sort of talking about this is we were one of the first organizations, even within Credit Suisse, in terms of location, to actually realize the value of starting mentoring much earlier on in your life cycle. A lot of organizations typically focus on mentoring programs at very senior, executive levels, and we said no, we actually need to probably start it much lower in the journey, because that's where we see women really dropping out of the workforce, and that's the time you actually need to be able to provide them the right support so that they make the right choices for themselves, whatever that choice could be. And from then on, it's been a very exciting start for us. We have a returning women's program, which has been running very successfully in Credit Suisse. It's the third year in a row, and we have only seen it expand over the last few years. So very happy to be here, Neha, and happy to continue to engage on this topic.
Great, thank you, Anuradha. Anuradha, something that you mentioned in your introduction was about mentoring.
Yeah.
A lot of women sometimes wonder if mentoring is very important, and also how to go about finding a mentor and how to go about building that relationship. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So over the years, my own thinking on this has sort of developed, right, Neha? And I have my own personal experience has been formal mentoring programs are a great start and a good segue, but informal mentoring actually works the best, which means that uh, if you're able to find someone through your network during the course of your interactions, either because you're working on a project or you've been assigned a cross-functional assignment, and you find someone who you really think you can learn from, informal mentoring actually works far better, because there's already sort of a shared interest or a goal coming through. There's chemistry that happens, and then there is a relationship that you can build through that. Having said that, I think a lot of my own experience has been that a lot of women, even when organizations offer mentoring programs, struggle with, okay, what do I, the questions start with saying, sometimes he's so senior, right? Can I just go and approach him? Do I really have to put the invite on his calendar, or will somebody reach out to me? What do I really talk to him about? Can I just vent to him about the fact that my career is going nowhere, or can I sort of ask him for help on specific problems that I'm facing with the workplace? And I think there's a place, all of this can be resolved through mentoring, but I think most importantly, for women to make the best use of the relationship, they have to be very clear what their goals are. And people use it for different things. Someone may want to use it as a sounding board. Someone may actually want to use the relationship to help him navigate through a specific situation that he is on. Someone may actually want larger career advice, not linked to that specific organization. But it's very important for the relationship, if the relationship has to be successful, be it formal or informal, I've seen that the more clear your goals are in terms of what you want out of the relationship, the smoother the relationship becomes, and the more you will benefit from that association.
That's great, and I think that's a great tip for the second half of our day today, because you all will be actually meeting a lot of the different mentors that JobSoho has from who are HR heads of large organizations. I think it's important to keep in mind what is your goal that you want to get from that conversation. Amit, would you like to share something about mentoring and what your personal experience has been?
So I completely agree with what Anuradha said, and I think let me build on to it in two ways. One, organizations which design frameworks to encourage mentorship in their culture are far more successful. I'll be honest with you, I don't know the exact research around it, but I have been part of 4 organizations in the last 23 years that I have been working, all reasonably large, very successful corporations, Citi, GE, Bajaj, and the DHFL group. Each has created a niche in its own space. And I have seen organizations where the mentorship program has been run in a very structured manner, and it has to be co-owned by business and HR. It cannot be an HR-led program only. If it is not jointly owned by the leadership team and does not have the executive office support, then it won't be successful. So clearly, I think organizations should adapt it, and those who have adapted have gained from it. Their employees have gained from it. I think not only the mentee learns from the experience of the mentor also learns from the mentee. I think it's a learning in life is a two-way process, and I have seen many a times the mentors go back with a very, very value adding experience. I have personally, professionally experienced it as well. In my own career, if I may take the example, I actually have two mentors. And if I have to give credit to somebody for where I am, from where I started, like I said, a very humble background, didn't even have an idea that I want to work in financial services. It happened accidentally. I went for a job into airlines and they obviously rejected me. And that's how financial services happened. Rest is history. I would have been a flight attendant or I don't know what with British Airways. That's the job I really wanted back then. But thankfully, I had the mentor very early on. Okay, I have two professional mentors. One who's got nothing to do with the financial services world, but has that leadership view. Okay, and the other one who's a financial services guru. He's built organizations, he's built businesses, he's built P&Ls and so on and so forth. So I work with both of them very, very closely. And back early when we were in school, we've learned the value of a guru, right? Yeah. So why not? Leverage. Please make the most of today. Go back. You all have mentors. You've just not activated them. Some of you have, and some of you have not activated them enough, is what I would say. You don't get an opportunity to choose your boss every time, right? If you're joining a job, of course you can choose who you're going to work with. But sometimes you get a boss, people move, people get transfer, HR will run rotation policies, all of that, right? But you have the option in life to select your mentor. Make that choice. Make that choice today.
So, just on that point, right, you're talking about, and I think you made a very valid point on it. You said that every one of you in this room really has a mentor. You probably are not aware, right? And it's a question I want to just ask you, and you don't need to answer it, but think for yourself, right? How many of you all are in touch with your ex-bosses? Question one. And question two is, how many of you all activate that relationship only when you're looking for a job? And that's the important piece, right? And that's where the relationship helps. If you have been actively in touch, probably by now your ex-manager would have already given you 3 leads, which you would be navigating through. But for a lot of us, and I'm guilty of that too, it's not just you, or it's not just you on the other side, all of us. And which is why I think sometimes it's important to make that effort consciously, because mentoring is not about only taking when you want. It's about that relationship, and mentors could learn too, right? It's also about what you can give back. So that's what we say when we say that, all of you have a mentor. Absolutely you have. You've been working, you have, whether it's, whether it's a college professor or whether it's an ex-boss, you have that mentor. But what you need to think is, have you kept that relationship alive in a meaningful way, which can help you navigate through your subsequent career?
So one way also to find mentors is through networking, right? And sometimes we almost think about networking as a bad word, something that I don't want to do. Can you talk a little bit about networking and how that has played out in your lives and what your advice would be?
You want me to go ahead first? Okay. I think Indians as a community are just not wired to network. We don't network. When did you first hear the word networking? Let me ask somebody in the audience. You don't have to answer it to me, answer it to yourself. When did you actually hear the first time you came across the word networking? And what does networking really mean to you?
I actually heard it the first time when I went abroad to study. When I went to America to study and I was at Wharton, the first thing I think they taught you was network.
Perfect, Neha, right? So, in fact, one of the panelists earlier was saying the educators in the room have a role to play, right? And I believe some people raise their hand as educators. I think Indians as a community in scholastics itself, in our academics, we never understand the power of networking. Not in school. The only time I did a focus group conversation around this, and I was talking to a few colleagues, and all of them said the first time we heard the word networking was when we went for a management program. So does this mean that if you're not if you're not an MBA, if you're a doctor, you could be a very leading successful engineer, doctor, artist, musician. You don't have to network, you have to network. Whatever your career is, whatever your career stream, domain, choice is, forget BFSI, forget financial services, anywhere you have to network. It will give you the power of multiplying. If I have to give you an analogy, what digital is done to BFSI in the last, what digital is doing to BFSI now is what networking can do to your career. It can multiply the way you cannot even imagine. So build your brand, of course deliver, build your brand and network.
Which is why, Amit, you'll be happy to know that one of the things we realized, which is stopping women on a break from networking, is the fact that we don't have any business cards to leave with the person we're networking with, right? And we realized that because we were all on a
But
break.
Neha, who's stopping you? Your name, your number, and saying what you believe in.
Right.
What is your passion?
So, but then
you
we
could
went
exchange
one,
that as a card.
then we went one step further, and everybody who's attending the conference today, we have printed business cards out
Wow.
for them. Okay,
Wonderful.
just so that when you all meet companies and speakers and mentors and guides and all those people who you'll get to meet today, you can hand over your business card, right? Like anybody else networks, and now we've removed that excuse completely from why you're not networking.
True, very true. I was at a management program, 93 of us in the batch. This is real, 2012, INSEAD, very successful professionals, gender diversity of 8% in the program. Okay, I think Jeremy was talking about what is the intake from a graduate to postgraduate and so on and so forth. So I'm connecting the dots. And can you imagine, it was only the Indian community which was talking about their professional careers. Everybody else was introducing about what they love to do in life. So we are known by our business cards. I think you are really wanting to change that. I didn't know you've printed these visiting cards. I'm very happy to hear that, and I think everybody should use them or print whatever works for them.
Yes, or print them. It's so easy to print these cards. All you need to do is visit your local printer and just have a card. Put down some adjectives of the skills that you have. Put down something about what you want to do, and then very proudly give that to somebody who you meet next time. At a party, outside school, when you go pick up your kids, at the doctor's clinic, you never know where you might meet somebody who might lead to that particular job.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Amit pretty much covered it. So, and Neha, you mentioned, like, we see it as a bad word, right? And so the bad news is that there's no shying away from it. The good news is that networking is not equal to enjoying a smoke, drinking with the boys, enjoying a beer. Networking is not necessarily something that only happens post office hours. So those are really the myths which I think sometimes, and it may exist. The point is that's not only it, and that's not the end all and be all. So networking is essentially about, if you're put in a room with 5 people, can you at least reach out and take away 2 people whom you can, put a name to, know a little bit about them, and maybe reach out to them later on if you need to, for whatever may be that reason. But it's about being able to do that in any situation that you are in, and therefore it's a conscious effort. Many times you walk in and you see people moving around, like, with their wine glasses from one person to another, and you're like, how easily the person does it. For all you know, the person's not doing it easily. He's also prepared for it. And that's why sometimes it requires a little bit of preparation, because it is about conversation. It's about knowing where there is a common interest and how do you sort of build that out during the course of your conversation. So it requires preparation, but absolutely it's something that you can't shy away from.
Great, thank you. So that actually takes me to the next segment, which is about women who want to restart their careers in finance, right? Especially because we are in Bombay, in the financial capital of India. We also realize that there are a lot of women who want to get back specifically in finance, and we thought it'd be lovely to hear from the two of you, since the current industry that you're working in is finance, plus you'll have also been in so many other companies which were in the financial industry. If you can tell us a little bit about the skills, competencies, and the route that a woman can take to restart her career in finance, and also how to rise in it.
Sure. So I'll just share with you our own example of the real returns programs that we started, right? Like I mentioned, this is the 3rd year of the program. When we launched it in the 1st year, I'll be honest, it was HR going to business with saying, let's do this because, we need to, it is the right thing to do. And luckily for us, we had enough sponsorship, so we didn't really have to push it, but I won't shy away from saying that it started off as something that HR said we must do as part of our gender diversity agenda. I'm very happy to say that the subsequent 2 years, we didn't have to do that. Subsequent 2 years, it was driven by business demand and not by HR having to push it. And that has only happened because the business has realized that this is a viable talent pool. I've had managers come and tell me that we like the fact that we are getting to hire people who've worked for a couple of years, who have seen a little bit of the of the corporate world, and therefore bring in a lot more maturity as compared to probably fresh grads who don't really understand what the corporate world is going to offer, and therefore we see a lot of expectation mismatch. So people actually like the fact that we are bringing in a slightly more experienced and a more mature talent pool. So clearly, from my perspective, to answer your question, Neha, I think, and when I then talk to women, right, who are wanting to restart, every year we do this, there's that, will we be accepted? Will we have to will there be some unrealistic expectations from us? Will we have the right training? And I see that the demand that we have from the business is not reciprocated by the confidence from the women's side, and that is something I want to say we don't need to live with. The business is absolutely willing and wanting this talent pool. So from a supply side, if I'm looking at each of you women who are willing to restart, there is the first, if your first question is, are we really, like, is this really something that people want to do because it's nice to do, or is this really something that is important and that can give me the confidence? I think the first point I want to say is you can have the confidence, because I think clearly the demand is rising, and I think Neha can vouch from from the entrepreneurial side in terms of how programs like these have actually grown, and they're not growing, and if you can start, you cannot sustain if it was not seen as a viable talent pool. So I want to clearly say that we want more people. We are actually having trouble finding more people in this talent pool. That's our
So now
issue.
you know that you need to find Anuradha after this break. And
We are actually having more demand than we can meet.
Wow.
So if today I have a number of probably 18 internships that I've done, that's because we couldn't find more than 18 people. The demand for the skill set is very much there. So clearly, all I want to say is that what worries me is that the demand is not backed by equal amount of confidence. And I think that is something each of you need to work with. Yes, there will be challenges. Yes, you probably will find that you will need to reskill. But like Amit said, I mean, he's been reskilling for so many years in his career. So it's not just this talent pool that needs reskilling, right?
Everybody
so
needs.
yes, there will be reskilling. Yes, you'll find that you've probably also been left behind a little bit, and somebody who's already made it and you're still probably 2 levels below. But absolutely, I think our own experience has been about 80% of the women we've hired through the program continue to be with us. And we will start very soon tracking promotion metrics, because it's now a good time for us. But at least for me, the 80% retention is a very clear metric to say, yes, this is working, they're staying with us, and they're probably positioned to have a more longer term career with us.
Great. Thank you, Anuradha. Amit?
Wow. That's my first response. I think, so Neha, my response is not specific to BFSI. I know that's how you got me here, and you can sack me if you want. Yes. That's okay. Yeah, she told me specifically outside also, Amit, answer specific to BFSI. But see, leadership is portable.
Sure.
You are never born to say you can only be successful in BFSI and so on and so forth. Right? You find your way. Let me give the perspective from let me give a broader view. What is the recruiter looking for? Forget restart for a moment.
Sure.
With Neha's permission. Yeah, I know you are here for that. This could be your first job, this could be a comeback after 5 years, after 15 years. I heard a colleague earlier here say, she was amazing in asking the question, sincere, transparent, honest. She said her age, she spoke about the challenges being faced from age as a barrier in India perspective. It's so true. Not 60, even at 50, right? So you have to go back and ask the fundamental question, what is the recruiter looking for? To me, if I have to answer that question, they are looking for core competence. So obviously, if I am hiring someone, I'll hire you for your domain. Yeah, there could be experiments and projects and experiences where exceptions are there, but principally we are hiring you for your domain knowledge, your IQ, your EQ, right? Any candidate. Gender agnostic, gender neutral, male, female. What are you looking for? You're looking for this, right? And you're looking for passion to excel. Do you have it in you? Your attitude. If you have a winning attitude, and if you are able to demonstrate that in the conversation and a lot of psychometric tests that our friends in HR do, for all of us when we are getting hired, right? Uh, uh, I think you have a strong case to get hired, whether it's BFSI or beyond BFSI. That's one. Two, very specifically to BFSI, you may have taken a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year break by choice as a sabbatical for health reasons or for any other reasons to support your family, to be with your parent, or for motherhood. I think men, women have to be equally proud of motherhood. And when you are coming back, first and foremost, be extremely confident. You bring with you the most valued skill which most men don't have, which is multi-skilling. Be very, very confident. In fact, if somebody tries to tell you the other way around, give it back.
This is why we have men on our panels, by the way, because
Of course, give it back to them.
men
Okay.
can really do the male bashing, not us.
Yeah, of course. You know, I say this in every meeting, and some of the men don't like me for it, but that's too bad. Okay. And the reason I articulate it is because without their equal partnership, we cannot be successful on the agenda on diversity in leadership in our company. Okay. So very, very clearly, I would give you some 2-3 very specific points. During your sabbatical or your motherhood break, or whatever was the reason for you to take the break, find ways to upskill yourself. Reskill if you have to. Okay? Don't worry about titles and designations. I know somebody asked the question, I don't know who that was. Title will come. Don't worry about the title. Worry about the role. Is this organization that will give you what you're really looking for? What are you really looking for? If I have to ask you the question, if I would be in your place, or if I talk to my family, my friends, my women colleagues, my candidates, and even my, my wife, my sister, so on and so forth, they say we are looking for respect. We should have respect in the workplace. That's the first priority. We are looking for flexibility, and we are looking for pay parity. Somebody who values our experience, not says your title is AVP, VP, Senior VP. These days in BFSI, Anuradha will agree, you can even be a Senior Executive Vice President, plus, and you could be managing a small territory and be at a very low pay scale. So don't go for title, go for the larger picture. Reskill yourself, upskill yourself, read, find time. Even if you take out 30 minutes a day to know what is happening in your industry, that will be a great value during your interview process. I'll give a very specific tip. What is happening? What is the latest changing trend and pattern in your industry? Do you know that? If you know that, you would have made the contact and connect on the point with the recruiter. And it's not too difficult. And if you have the network, which we were earlier talking about, and you have a good mentor, they'll anyways tell you this.
Great. Thank you, Amit. I hope all of you were listening, and especially somebody who asked me a question just before this panel started. She asked me that I've had all these years of experience in finance, and I'm trying to figure out what I can do with those skills. Does it have to be finance, or can it be something else? And I think Amit clearly showed that the world is open for all of you, and the importance of reskilling, mentorship, and networking through that. So to end with, Anuradha, if there's one thing that you wish to see different happen in the world of women in finance, what would that be? And Amit, I'll give you 2 minutes to think about it while I put Anuradha on the spot.
Sorry, one thing that is different in the
That
world.
you would like to see different in the world of women in finance in India.
Well, I think the answer is very clear. The numbers speak for themselves. We are like what, less than 10% or 15% diversity. Absolutely, that's something I would love to see differently. I mean, at least double to start with. But that's absolutely an aspiration. But separately, I think since this is the population that we're addressing, right? I think more and more I'm seeing people are generally becoming aware and conscious that, we need to be more inclusive about accepting people who have taken a break. And in fact, in one of the once when I was doing a town hall in my own organization, I actually had men stand up and ask me, why don't you give us opportunities or segue like this, because we've taken a couple of us would like to take breaks and come back, say I want to go start up, doesn't work, or even take a travel break, a study break, whatever, and come back, and why don't you give us these opportunities? And I said, I would love to. I would honestly love to, because it is about being more inclusive, right? It's in this case, obviously the break is primarily driven probably by maternity reasons, but otherwise I'd really look to see a day when we can be more inclusive about all people who take breaks, right? And not put them in a spot and make them defensive and ask them to explain constantly on why they actually took a break. So from a hiring practice, I would love for us to be a lot more inclusive and welcome people who've actually taken a break and come back, be it men or women.
That's great, because I hope one day we'll see the world where women are 50% breadwinners and men are 50% caregivers. That would be a good world. Yes. Amit, your turn.
So Neha, you don't have to go too far. That world exists. US has a population where, if I'm not wrong, 54% is the contribution for women in workforce.
But
to
they're still,
GDP.
but men are still not 50% caregivers.
No,
That's
no,
the
they are
truth.
not. But men are far more open and progressive to dividing work and stepping up. A. Don't go far. US तक जाने की भी जरूरत नहीं है. इतनी लंबी flight नहीं चाहिए हमें. China. Okay. We all talk about, Indians love to talk and do less. That's again something we do as a community. Yeah. Point I'm trying to say is, we've got the population statistics in our favor. We are 48.4, if my numbers are not right, in terms of gender diversity mix for women. Okay, in workforce, it's sub 30 in India.
And it's decreased over time.
And it's lowering.
So one report says 30, 31,
20.
I heard somebody say 27 earlier. Today, BFSI, my God, pathetic, 20. Okay, 20. Somebody in my leadership team was telling me, Amit, you should be proud, industry is 20, you are 20. I think you know what I think about that person. Yeah. What do we need to change? China is 69%. So if you're not getting job in India, you can get in China. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. I think corporate India has a responsibility to step up, and that's the real reason why I'm here. We've not worked with them before. We took their inputs when we were designing our restart program. Now I know we can take inputs from Anuradha and a lot of other colleagues who've been here as well. They gave us some valuable insights when we were designing the program. I am not at all shy to say we've actually miserably failed, because we were thinking like men. We needed to think how women think. And we've learned and refined the program. We've changed our policies around it. We've done significant work. What we would like to see is that how can we make a big difference to move up from industry average BFSI of 20 to, let's say, 30 in the short to mid term, and the mid to long term can we actually be anywhere around 50-50. Because imagine what can happen. India's GDP today is 2.8 trillion USD. China is about 6 trillion on a similar number. China's diversity mix is 65% women contributing to the GDP. In India, that is suboptimal at sub 30. So please apply to your choice of employer. There are employers wanting to hire you. Do not hesitate, be confident, upskill, reskill, leverage the networks, go for it.
Great. Thank you so much, Amit. And thank you, Anuradha. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.